In this video, I'm going to be giving you a tutorial on how to treat your dog's leash reactivity or leash aggression. We're going to be using methods backed by science, of course, as we always do on this channel, and it's going to be fear-free and force-free methods. So if you're interested in getting that nerdy approach to treating your dog's reactivity, keep watching. What's up, guys? It's Jenna with Dog Liaison, where I coach you on how to enhance your dog's mental health needs. I'm a professional dog trainer who works solely with dogs facing anxiety issues. And in my signature program, the Recovering Rover program, I coach parents on how to take their dog out into the world without reacting to triggers. So without lunging, without barking, without pulling, and without all that extra fluff, so that they can go for a breezy walk with their dog to the cafe or to the beach. So today I'm going to be spilling the exact method I teach in that Recovering Rover program to you. So if you're interested, let's get started. Now, quick disclaimer, you may hear me say reactivity and aggression interchangeably, and for the sake of this video, they are interchangeable. So whether your dog is experiencing fear or perhaps your dog is experiencing being overjoyed and just really gets excited on walks and starts lunging and pulling because he's so enthusiastic, this video will help you. If you don't know what reactivity is, or you're wondering what I mean by that, then I have a whole video explaining that for you, and I recommend you check it out. So what we're really doing in this method is we're going to be taking your dog's trigger and desensitizing what it means to your dog's body. Remember that when your dog is seeing his trigger, a lot of adrenaline is going off, and there is a huge chemical explosion of all sorts of shenanigans, and that means there's no longer a space for logic. So what we need to do is desensitize that experience. We need to make it a little bit less concerning, less alarming, and make sure all of those hazard avoidance signals that are going off, we limit them and we make it a much more peaceful experience, and then we focus on the behavior element. But if you have not taken the time to really mild that experience so that those emotions are not so extreme and so that those hazard avoidance signals are not going off, then you probably are going to be not very successful. You're probably going to fail at this training protocol. It's super important that we first focus on the association element, on desensitizing that experience so that we're setting our dog up for success. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to set your dog up at a far distance from his trigger. So for the sake of this video, we're going to say that your dog's trigger is a male human, so a man. And you can really interchange your dog's trigger here. So insert your dog is reactive to other dogs, or your dog is reactive to loud sounds, whatever it is, insert it here, okay? And what you're going to do is set yourself at a far enough distance that you are not getting the excitable behavior. So what this means is that, let's say your dog gets super excited every single time that he's within 15 feet of a man, right? You're going to set your dog up at 25 feet away or 30 feet away, far enough distance that he is no longer demonstrating that super excitable lunging, pulling, barking, or really hyperactive response. Was that a dog?
Yeah, we're getting a furry friend who's going to walk by us.
You can yes and treat again. Yes?
Yeah. Yes. Okay.
Good. As long as that dog is in the space, yes and treat. Yes. Good. If she looks at the dog again, yes?
Yes. Good.
Good. Try to time your yes with when she looks at the dog.
Yes.
Good. Good job. You're doing excellent. And every time your dog sees this man, all I want you to do is say yes and treat. So the yes is acting as a marker, which is going to identify the specific behavior that your dog did that earned him the reward. And if you don't already have a marker, then I recommend you use this tutorial that I did right here. Make sure you teach your dog that marker word first before you go practice this reactivity activity. Okay, reactivity activity. Once your dog knows that marker word, then you can go out into training and you're going to treat every single time, yes, treat every single time he sees that trigger. The reason you're doing this is there's a lot of reasons. First, because you want to make sure that you are creating that Pavlovian response, which is a classical conditioning. It is based in human psychology and all animal sciences, that as soon as he sees this trigger, something good is going to happen. All we care about is creating that positive outcome. He does not care about the behavior just yet, and you shouldn't either, okay? We are going to worry about his behavior. We're going to do that. But the most important part is that you are creating that association, that when he sees his trigger, there's a positive outcome, something magically wonderful happens. And that is why you're going to feed. Now, at first, you might notice that you're feeding undesired behaviors. So if you are feeding and let's say your dog was pulling and you were just trying to throw treats at the wind and you're like, I don't really want to be feeding the pulling, that makes sense. But that also tells you you need to back up, build distance. So if you are getting undesired behaviors very frequently and you're like, I don't want to keep feeding this moment because he's not giving me what I want, understandable. Build distance, go further back. Now remember, we're just looking for mild experiences, mild behavior. So your dog is alert and he's seeing the trigger, but he's not necessarily lunging, pulling, barking. If you're getting one of those extreme emotions and it just feels erratic, whether that's because he's hiding underneath your feet or he's lunging and barking at the trigger, whatever it is, if you are getting those extreme behaviors, then you need to back it up, build distance, and move forward when your dog is demonstrating more calm responses.
Yes. Good girl.
The important thing here is that when your dog is experiencing those extreme emotions, when he is lunging and barking or hiding underneath your feet, or even if he's super happy and he's just like, oh my gosh, I really want to get to that person, when that is happening, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of neurochemistry going on there that is going to interfere with your progress, and it is working against you. So our goal is to not let that part of his brain win. Our goal is to beat it where it starts. And if you want really the science of it, if you want to nerd out a little bit, then I recommend you check out this video where I deep dive on that. But our goal is to not let him get to that state in the first place. We must make it mild. We must make it so that he sees the person, he's aware that the person is there, but he's not necessarily going over threshold. Now, after you've been doing this yes treat activity a little bit, now you think you're ready to make it a little bit more difficult on your dog. You're like, okay, I got this first step, what's next? What's next is all I want you to do is delay your yes slightly. The reason is because you want to see if your dog is going to look back at you. You're trying to get engage, disengage.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So what you want is to, if you can delay your yes just slightly, what you really want to see is your dog turn around and go, wait a minute, you're supposed to be feeding me right now. That thing is over there and I'm looking at it, so I'm supposed to be getting something. Do you know that? And the reason that's going to happen is because you've Pavlovian conditioned him. This is classical conditioning at its finest. You've conditioned him to know that thing means I get something good. It should be coming to me, right? And once you get that engage with the trigger and disengage from the trigger, once you have that, man, it gets so much easier from there, okay? And so all you're going to do is delay your yes just slightly to see if your dog will turn his head on his own. I do want to be clear though that this may not happen every single time he looks at the trigger. He may sometimes not disengage on his own, and that is normal. You're not going to be like just when all of a sudden he just all of a sudden constantly disengages from the thing that he's triggered by. That's not realistic. But what you are looking for is generally maybe like a 50-50 or a 60% success rate or even higher. He is disengaging on his own and looking at you, and then you can Y-word, and then you can feed.
Yes. Yes. Good. Good heel. Nice. Yes, I see her. Good job. That was excellent. That was really good. Yes.
So what we've established here is that engage, disengage, and you're ready for the next step. I do want to mention that Engage Disengage game is actually created by Leslie McDevitt, and she is a wonderful resource. She has a book called Control and Leash. If you're looking to deep dive on it, that's the book for you. But once you've got that engage, disengage, now you're going to move on to the next step. The next step for this actually has two choices. You can pick one or the other, but you can't do both yet. There will come a day where you can do both, but not yet. The first option for you, once you have that engage and disengage, is you can ask for a behavior element. So you can ask your dog to do the next step. He's looked at the trigger, he's looked back at you, then before you Y-word and feed, you may ask for something simple like a spin, or like a high five, or a sit, or maybe you just want to walk away. Maybe you just want to leave the area. That's cool too. But that next step is the behavior element of it. You had him have a positive association. You kept that hazard avoidance signals at bay. The brain is in the right spot to learn. He's disengaging. He's looking back at you. Now you can expect that behavior from him. That's option one. But to be clear, when you're doing that option, you're still at a far, far, far distance from the human, from the trigger. You haven't gotten too close to the trigger yet, which leads me to option two. Once you have engage, disengage, if you don't want to choose the behavior, if you choose, I don't really want my dog to spin, what I want to do is I want to get a little bit closer to the trigger. That's okay too. So what you would do is engage, disengage. I want to step a little closer, and when I say closer, I mean probably within a 5 feet-ish range, give or take. It really depends on how far away from the trigger you are. If you're 50 feet away from the trigger originally, then you can afford to maybe move 5 to 10 feet closer. If you're only 10 feet away from the trigger originally, then maybe you would only step forward 3 or so feet, right? So it kind of depends, but approximately 5 feet closer to the trigger. And then guess what? You move back into stage one where you look for that engage, and you're going back to just treating him for engaging with the trigger. So you want to think of this as you've built up the criteria. You've made the difficulty level a little bit higher by getting closer. And so because of that, and you're asking your dog to be closer to the stimulating event, you have to see if they can even disengage to begin with, right? Are they even able to look away on their own? Sometimes he may be able to, sometimes he may not. It just depends on what the trigger is doing.
Oh, look, your tail's up now. Look at that good girl. Yeah. Yes. Good job. Look at that good girl. You want to go over here? Let's go. Good girl. Oh, look at that tail. Are you happy? This way. Good girl. Yes. Yes, I saw that dog. There's a dog over there. Good. Where is it? Look at that. Yes. Look at that. Good. Oh, he's gone. You want to keep going? Maybe we'll do one more round? Yeah, look at that wide open mouth. That is what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Now, at this point, you probably have a couple of questions running through your head. So I have a couple of notes that I want to run through here. For starters, if your dog has a negative association with the trigger, so if the dog, let's say the dog is fearful, right? And by the way, aggression is statistically linked to fear. The vast majority of an aggression and dog behavior is linked to the emotion of fear. And we must acknowledge that. So if your dog is fearful of the man that he's looking at, anticipate a couple things. Anticipate that your learning curve is going to take longer, and you may not necessarily be doing all of this training all in one day, my friend. It could take you a couple of days, it could take you a couple of weeks. It just depends on what the circumstances is. So that's a very high variable factor, okay? So anticipate that your negative emotion dogs could take a little bit longer. And secondly, try to be mindful about what your dog wants to do. So for example, sometimes I see people put their dog in a sit stay as soon as they disengage, right? So we talked about the hypothetical, the man is 45 feet away, he engages, he disengages, and then you put him in a sit stay. This is a tricky situation. If the dog performs it willingly, great, cool, good for you. But if you're noticing that you're having a hard time with this, what I want you to ask yourself is it fair to put my dog in this stay right now? Is it fair to force him to be still when he is fearful of that thing? I'm afraid of clowns. If someone told me I had to stay while a clown walked around me and do nothing about it, I would have a panic attack. I'd be like, what are you talking about? That is unreasonable, right? So sometimes putting your dog in that stationary position is actually really unfair. And if you just choose a movement that is going to actually get them to move a little bit, like a recall, or you choose to do a loose leash walk pattern, right? If you just pick something that gets you moving, you might find that you have a little bit more success with that. Additionally, I do recommend that you become very fluent in dog body language. You will have so much of an easier time, my friend, if you just understand what a lip lick means, what a yawn means, what a shake. If you just know basic dog body language, you are going to have so much more of a better time. So my friend, please watch this playlist that I have created, starting with the dog stress signal compilation. Watch this video, become very fluent in dog stress signals. It'll make it easier for you. When you're training, how often you train is also a big question. I actually did a video on this as well, and you can check that out for a deep dive answer on how long to train. However, I would say that generally speaking, you want to think about each training session with the trigger should last about 1 to 15 minutes. I don't recommend exceeding 15 minutes for one trigger. That is a very long time for a dog to train, especially something that is overstimulating and concerning for him. Additionally, you're probably going to be feeding a lot of food, and so more than 15 minutes of food is a lot of food. So when we're training, we are using treats, and we're using super high value treats, and there's a reason for that. I did a video all on dog anxiety treats. Please check that out. So that would be the next logical conclusion for you as well. But you want to be using very small pieces of food, and we're not trying to fill our dog's stomach with all sorts of junk, but we also want to be reasonable about how hard they're working. And if they're working really hard, we want to be paying them for that effort. The next question you might be asking is, well, Jenna, I don't want to be using food forever. I want to be able to get rid of treats. Is this going to be reliant? The answer is absolutely yes. Our goal is not to use food for every little thing into perpetuity. Our goal is to increase criteria, and things that are really difficult, we do want to make sure we're paying comparably, but overall we should be fading out food, and there should be a process to that. So for more information, please check out this video where I deep dive on that. I promise all of your questions I have an answer to. The next question that you might be asking is, should I have the stranger, the trigger person, be feeding my dog? A lot of times people think that if the trigger person is feeding their dog, that will mean that their dog will assume that the trigger person is safe. It's an understandable conclusion. What I would say is that for the vast majority of dogs, I don't recommend that. If you have a dog that is very mildly reactive, then sometimes having the trigger person feed is okay. But if your dog is if you're watching this video, your dog is probably pretty reactive, and I would say it probably doesn't include you, right? I would say that for you, I do not recommend having the trigger person, whether that is because they love the dog so much and they're the BFFs, or because the dog is afraid of the trigger person. Whatever the emotion is motivating the behavior, if your dog is highly reactive, I don't recommend having that trigger person feed. And for more understanding of that and a full explanation of why that is, please check out this video right here. You might be thinking also, but Jenna, I don't have a helper person, a trigger person, or a trigger dog that I can use. I can really only use what the world is giving me. Understandable, you can still make this work, okay? It might be a little bit more difficult on you because it's going to feel a little bit more spontaneous to you, and you may feel a little less prepared, but it's still very doable. What I recommend you do is have quantities of triggers that you want to interact with on a walk. So you would say, let's say your dog is reactive of men, right? You would say, I want to come in contact with 4 men on this walk. And once I hit 4, I'm going home. End of the story, right? 4 minutes over, or 4 men over 30 minutes, right? If you don't hit 4, that's cool too, but we're definitely not exceeding 4. That's how I want you to think of it. And really, you're setting your dog up for success. So if that means that you are changing the time of day that you are going for that walk because you think that some times of days might be more crowded, or if that means that you're changing the route, perhaps I have many clients that will put their dogs in the car, drive to a better location and walk their dog there. Whatever it is, you want to set your dog up for success, and much of that means thinking ahead of time, having a plan, because I promise you, the worst events happen when you decide to say, let's just see what happens. The let's just see what happens training mentality is never successful. Having a plan, having a strategy, that's what's going to help you. I want you guys to chase quality, not quantity. That means that we're looking for quality learning opportunities, not quantity of learning opportunities. This means that you are not expecting linear progress. Progress doesn't go like this, right? Progress is rocky, and that's okay. Anticipate the low points, and remember that training is not just stressful for you. You might be thinking to yourself, wow, this could be a little bit of work right now. This is a little bit more involved than just having a dog learn sit. It is, that's true. So remember that it's not just stressful for you, but it's also really stressful for your dog, especially if your dog is experiencing aggression and is experiencing frustration or a lack of confidence. If those things are what's getting your dog to behave the way he is, then you must be very mindful about how often you're training. From here, I have a lot of other free resources to help you on your reactive dog journey. I recommend you download the free Reactive Dog case study in the description box below. It is 100% free. It is going to walk you through step by step how I helped my clients recover their dog's Levi's reactivity to other dogs. 2, I really recommend you check out this playlist, which is completely dedicated to reactivity and aggression in dogs. I have a very comprehensive YouTube channel that I recommend you check out. It is going to answer many of your questions. Number 3, if you are looking for a program that is going to walk you through step by step how to treat your dog's reactivity or aggression out in the world, if you are looking for a program that is going to guide you and coach you through the troubles and answer those questions for you when you need them, then you might be interested in my signature program, the Recovering Rover program. This is a program specifically designed to coach parents on how to treat their dog's reactivity and enhance their dog's mental health. And for more information on the RRP, you can go to getacalmdog.com or slide into my DMs and let's chat. If you enjoy this video and you think other people will learn from it as well, do me a favor, hit that like button to let the YouTube algorithm know. Consider subscribing, hit the notification bell so you get notified when I drop a new video each week, and don't forget to go binging through all of my other content for more help. I'll talk to you soon.